Try Life On family, what's happening? Welcome back to another edition of the Try Life On podcast. Today is April the 1st. Happy April Fool's Day, I guess. But what we're talking about is not a joke at all. I had the wonderful opportunity to interview my new friend, Mando Sallivanti, amazing cat out of Pennsylvania. And he and I have connected. We connected quite some time ago on social media because I love to talk about money. But I like to talk about money from the perspective of how money impacts our lives, how we should be using it from a cash flow perspective today so we can try life on today, and how we can accumulate it such that it's available to us so we can try life on later in life. Mando is a certified financial planner. But here's the thing about Mando. He's not in his 40s, 50s, 60s, someone who's been in the industry for a very long time. He's actually in his mid-20s. The way he articulates financial freedom, the way he articulates education around the financial industry, how professionals can and should leverage it, is something that truly caught my attention when we were interacting on social media. Everything he does is from a life perspective, in that money is a tool so you can go live your life extremely well today. One of his mantras is wealth is more than money. That's what caught my attention. It is. For some reason, when we get out of school, the 20 to 30 years formal school education, we start on this paper chase. We have to get the most amount of money to live the best life, etc. That's just not true. And that's not what he articulates for his clients as a certified financial planner. But just even in his own life as an early rising professional who's trying to figure out his life with his fiance's life, I simply just love the way he articulates this money thing, this long pole in the tent that we all have to put up for life. So I asked him to come on the show, and I thought it was pretty compelling. Inevitably, a lot of you that I speak to are very concerned about spending money on some kind of advisor, whether it be a mentor in the real estate space or a financial advisor, or even a trainer to go to the gym. The one thing I want you to key on during the conversation is when Mando and I get into the conversation about how much money and time we have put into our own mentors. And if you don't have money and time for your own mentors, you can certainly use free resources like the library, books, podcasts, and what have you. But people don't realize how much you can accelerate any journey, including your financial journey, when you leverage a mentor or an advisor like Mando, or someone who's been on a journey for 20, 30 years like myself. It just cuts the red tape for everything that we are trying to do in life. I thought this was an amazing, wide-reaching conversation with someone who's very young in his professional career, but is so astute at how we can use money to push our life forward. I know a lot of you out in Try Life on Land have that issue and always feel like you are starting late. You are not. Mando and I had that conversation as well. Lean into this conversation. Money's always the discussion point for everything that we do. But here is a certified professional in the space, someone who I respect, not because they are in the space, but because how they articulate it, in that it supports life. Money is a tool for life. It is not life. All right. Sit back, relax, enjoy this conversation with my man, Mando Sallivanti. I hope you appreciate it. Check him out on LinkedIn. That's the #1 place that you can find him. And if you find this conversation useful, please, I would appreciate you considering giving me a 5-star review, either on iTunes or Spotify or whatever platform you listen to, so other people can find this information to try life on more from their perspective. With that said, let's have this conversation with my man, Mando Sallivanti. It is recording. What up?
That Nothing much, man. Nothing much. Busy Easter Monday here.
Yeah.
After yesterday, you know, but it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. A lot of growth.
Where are you?
I'm in Pennsylvania. So if you know Scranton, which is like 2 hours north of Philly, 2 hours west of New York City, I'm like right in Northeast PA up here.
You're in Scranton. Good. Yeah. Well, it's good to meet you, man.
Yeah, good to meet you, man. Good to meet you. Look, I love your posts. I just gotta say, and like, I feel like so much of your mindset, I'm just so aligned on, or it's like stuff I see from you, and then I'm like, man, that's a better way to think about that thing, you know? So just want to tell you that up front.
I appreciate that, brother. Actually, one of the reasons I reached out to you, and you will have been introduced and all this stuff, and the editors will take care of all this stuff. But one of the reasons I reached out to you, man, is because I don't schedule my posts. I don't think about them the day before. I might get an idea and like jot it down or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everything is done probably 10, 15 minutes before I even put the stuff out there. So I get very interested in comments. And granted, I'm starting to get a little bit bigger, so it's hard for me to like go out and comment on everything now like I used
Yeah.
to. But I've been watching you for a while, and the way that you were commenting was screaming of somebody who's not interested in status quo living. And I just kind of sensed his way. What my perception was, you sensed, man, I'm gonna run life a little bit different than what I see people out there doing in their, let's say, late 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I was like, I gotta get this dude on the podcast as fast as
Yeah.
possible.
I appreciate it. Like, really does mean a lot to hear that coming from you. And
Yeah.
absolutely, man. Like, we'll probably talk about this, but where
Yeah.
I come from and where I'm still living now, it's a very low income area. Like, average income up here in Northeast PA is like $40,000 a year compared to, 55 or whatever it is in the
Mm,
country. And it's just that small mindset, like,
no doubt.
you know, do the status quo path, go to work, do nothing else, spend all your money at restaurants and bars, retire when you're 70 if you live that long. Like, that's
Yeah.
literally like everybody around me. And just from day one, it's like, oh, I could go on, man. I could go on. I know we're gonna record in a little here, but
We no, we're recording now. I like to do it
oh,
this way
okay.
because so it's just conversation. But let me so I'll,
Yeah.
for one, awesome to meet you. I want the Try Life On community to meet you because two, I don't really get a sense, I don't really get a chance to express this very often on LinkedIn or on social media, like what Try Life On truly is. Like, how are you really gonna put all that in a post for people to like absorb it? But what it is just a concept. It is the notion that we can try life on whenever we want to. We can make a fundamental decision to shift away from this status quo formal education, 20 to 30 years of formal education telling us what to do, where to be, what success looks like. You have to be the executive vice president. You have to work for a great company like Amazon. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of it, but
No.
we just seem to default to this thing that we do, which is, let me go get the title, let me go get this the largest paycheck possible. I want money too, but let me go get the largest paycheck possible. All my boys are going over there, so I'm going to go that way. Where I, you know my story, but when I hit my 20s, the way you are now, which is why I'm really curious about you, none of it felt right to me. None of
Mhm.
it. And I remember getting my first job at Accenture and then going into the military. So I went into the military May of 97 and then started my first day at Accenture October of 97. And I was like, nah, I'm not staying here for 40 years. This doesn't make sense, you know? But my community, or our community, I should say, is just people who've just figured something out or want to figure something out. And here you are. I know you're in your 20s, and I'll ask you to kind of articulate your story. You're
Yeah.
helping a ton of people out with the longest pole in the tent, which is the financial concern of life, if you will. And you're thinking very, I see it in your comments, brother. You're thinking very different about people's journey and even your own journey and that of your fiance, because I see what you
Hmm.
post. Where, brother, did that thought process kind of manifest in you? Just so folks get an understanding, and then kind of introduce yourself a little bit too.
So again, I'm Mando Sallivanti. I'm a certified financial planner. And really all that means is helping people go from current reality to desired reality, which is
Mm-hmm.
what you would call like trying life on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Maurice, it started growing up, I would say. My dad is a family doctor, and this is important for context for a couple reasons, but I'll explain his story and segue into mine.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up with divorced parents when, they divorced when he was before he even really could like remember. He was three, I think he was 3 years old, maybe. And they were separated. He was basically raised by his grandparents, lower middle class, and through high school worked hard, played sports, stuff like that. swept buses, like public transportation, to get himself to have spending money, get through high school,
Yeah.
get through college, went to med school, did that whole thing. He's a doctor now. So now I grow up good. Like I was middle class, upper middle class, had the Christmas presents under the tree. Any sport I wanted to play, like baseball, I got a new bat, stuff like that. Like the things that you really take for granted as a kid. I look back and I'm like,
Yeah.
I was lucky to have those. So naturally, I wanted to follow in his footsteps. Go to
Right.
school, go to med school, have the good job, provide a good life for my family. Like my dad takes us on vacation every year. This looks like a good way to go about things.
Yeah.
As I kept getting older, though, and I got into college, there was a definitive time my freshman year of college, well, after my freshman year, and
Mm-hmm.
I realized, one, I don't want to go to school for 8 years. Two, I don't think I want to be a doctor. I think I just want to get what my dad has given me and
Yep.
build on that.
Yep.
And three, I don't really want to live the traditional just go to work, come home from work, 9 to 5 life, which I sort of live a 9 to 5 now, sort of don't. We'll probably get into those details, but
Mm-hmm.
that was the first realization I had. So then I'm in school. I'm playing football. I played small school Division 3 football,
Yeah.
loved it, had an amazing time.
Yeah.
And my last season was 2020, got
Yep.
canceled because of the pandemic. So now I'm bored and I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, what am I going to do now? I start reselling sneakers. I always collected sneakers. It was a part of my life. So Nikes, Jordans, Yeezys, all them.
Yeah.
And I built a business there to like $10,000 or 100 or 10,000 followers on Instagram, over 100,000 in revenue, which sneaker margins aren't huge. It's like 15-20%, but did it in 5 months and did it from my college apartment.
Damn.
After that, I get into finance and I'm like, okay, throw the sneaker business away, but I'm going to take these skills and do it with my finance business,
But you
build
got
that
into
up.
finance because you had a degree coming out of, I know you went to King's College. You had a
Yeah,
degree coming out of King's
I
that
had
led
to
to
I
that?
fit yeah, because I finished. I basically did the sneaker thing because of the pandemic, because I was
Oh,
just
oh, I see,
bored.
I see, I
I was
see.
like, I'm bored. I'm taking electives to finish my degree. Let me start this up. Like I'm just bored. Let's just see what happens. And
Mm-hmm.
originally it was just like, let me just get a couple extra pairs, but then it became a real business.
Mm.
And I graduate, start this because I plan to. I had a mentor along the way who was my father's financial advisor, and now he's one of my partners.
Mm-hmm.
But I start in this, and what's unique about the career as a financial advisor is that you really make your own schedule, and that could be your detriment or it could be your best friend.
Right.
I'm fortunate that I've used it to my advantage. It's like have these seasons of working really hard, have other seasons where maybe I'm going to travel a little bit, work a little less, but it's got to balance out in the long term and be in a harmony, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's like the career path. Now back to the mindset.
Yep.
I saw that a lot of advisors, all they really talk about is how do I just get more money into these stock accounts? How do I
Yep.
collect the fee on these stock accounts? So right
Yep.
from day one, I saw that as like, well, I don't think this is the best way to do things. So I completely shifted my entire business model and the way that the industry did it. And there's other advisors that do this, but I don't think a majority definitely don't. So we charge a retainer fee now, whether it's monthly or annually that people pay it. And I'm
Mm.
like, I could just charge a fee to help people just design their life exactly what they want to get to and what that desired reality looks like. And after I did that, like my business has just taken off and is continuing to. I mean, I'm only scratching the surface of where I want to be, but
Yeah.
that's the jumbled story. I know I hopped around a
No,
little
no,
bit
no.
there, but that's basically what's led to us sitting here today.
You know what, man? So in my 20s, so I'm 48 now. Although I fucking feel 26. I'm out there living life as hard as I can. I remember talking to a financial advisor at USAA, just because I'm military, so USAA was a natural place for me to talk to somebody. And the guy told me, I think I was 26, 27. The guy told me, Maurice, actually, he said some really good things. He was like, hey, I want you to, or you should like sock your money away into a S&P 500 index fund. Just be consistent about it. Throw your funds in there, etc., and you'll get where you need to be. But what threw me off with what he said was you'll get where you need to be. And I said, well, where do you think I need to be? He was like, well, if you have a couple million, you'll be fine. I was like, be fine for what? And that was the disconnect. I could tell right away, and this is where I think people struggle. Everybody feels like a number. You know what I mean? He didn't equate anything to my life, anything to my dreams. Never talked about, and I'm self-taught in this respect, and I'm curious your thoughts, but never talked about the fact that we just need a certain amount of money on a monthly basis to live. He always kept talking about the end goal, which was, look, by the time you're 65, like, brother, I'm not talking about age 65. I'm talking about like age 36. How do I get myself to a point, not where I was free of employment, but I had a choice to live. Life choices, right? You have a choice to not work. And I think that's the difference of what you were talking about, is equating it to people's lives versus just this number systematic thing that everybody hears.
You know where I think the financial world in general fails, or
Mm.
where people fail when they talk about financials? Everybody is obsessed with accumulation.
Yeah.
What should I invest in? What's the best stock out there? What type of real estate should I be in? Well, what about
Hmm.
private equity? Everyone's obsessed with what's the best return, what's the best accumulation.
Mm.
You know what nobody talks about almost, which you talk about this actually. I talk about this. There's probably other people, but in general, I
Mm.
rarely see this part. What does it look like when you're actually going to pull income from that source?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what's the outcome? Because if you equate it, like I always use the analogy with clients going up and down a mountain. So like if I have a mountain here, I'm going to go climb the mountain, but I got to get down the mountain.
Yep.
And if you look at people who climb Mount Everest, most of them die on the way down. And
Yep.
financials are the same thing. And that's the part I think that people miss with the disconnect of like, how do I pull income? What does it look like? And how do I not do it in a way that's gonna quote unquote hurt me?
Why is it that I'm just being general? Okay, so like I'm gonna poke you. I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna poke the bear a little bit, but
Yeah, yeah.
why is it that the financial industry does not talk about monthly income or cash flow? Or you don't you don't live off accumulation. You live off of flow that comes from something. I'm self-taught in that respect, because I found real estate and I was like, man, if I pay these things off, I'm gonna get me some money on a monthly basis and I can go live my life the way that I want to live it. I just don't. Now maybe I'm just and to be very fair, I'm so far away from the financial industry. When I used to talk to it, I don't know anymore. Um, because since I generated my own financial freedom, I just don't even know what's going on out there. But what I remember is, and what I don't really see is, like, they never talk about the day to day, like buying the groceries, how you gonna pay for the insurance bill. No, you can do that with your job. No, we're trying to do that now and not wait until we're 62. Is that just a standard? Is I don't know. Like, just what are your thoughts on that? And I know we got to prepare for the future too. Don't get me wrong. Just like there's a today that's going on.
What I'm gonna say is probably a little bit controversial.
Okay.
The standard advisor, if you look at it, it's 1% of assets is what they charge. Again,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we we don't do that. We will manage assets and charge a fee on that, but that's not our primary way we get paid. We do a flat fee because
Yeah.
we don't want there to be any. We get paid no matter what. That's what we want it to be.
A
So
flat fee.
why that matters? If I'm someone that's charging 1% of the assets you have that you're holding with me,
Mm,
am I incentivized to teach you how to take those out?
no.
No. And that might be controversial. This might be controversial for me to say, but I think that's a big reason a lot of advisors don't talk about it. Number
Mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I think a lot of advisors out there, I don't know how I just did that with the balloons, but I not but
That's
number
okay.
two,
Yeah.
on a serious note, like I don't think a lot of advisors truly understand planning with your money to produce it a lifestyle as much as they should. And they don't understand these other
Yeah.
alternatives to the stock market and how they play
Yeah.
into that. Like you don't
Yeah.
understand real estate, you don't understand private equity, and if you don't, fine, but have a resource that does at least, and have that to
Mm-hmm.
talk to a client. Because I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not an expert in private equity, but I have my guy Trev, who I bring into client calls, who he's an expert in private equity, and he's going to help clients with stuff like that. Just as an
Mm-hmm.
example, as a one off. But those are a couple of thoughts on why I think that is.
Yeah, you talk about, I read through some of your posts, and one statement that you had that I'd like you to explain, which I thought is powerful, is wealth is more than just money. Now, I'm gonna give you my definition of it after, but what do you mean by that when you say wealth is more than money? And then as an add-on, how do you get it across to people that this whole game is not about just money?
I first heard this from Ty Lopez, and he talks about like the good life, happy, healthy, wealthy, wise. And
Yeah.
that to me is wealth is more than money. It's that. It's like I can have all the money in the world, but if I'm
Mm.
not happy, if I'm not wise, like it doesn't matter. And I'll tell you a personal story for me,
Yeah,
Maurice, and I
please.
think this is why I've realized this at such a young age. I think
Mm.
my first year in business, I run my practice at a big firm, and there's you hit certain revenue numbers, you get recognized for that and whatnot. And my first year in business, I did more revenue than anybody in my firm has ever did as a first year advisor. So
Hmm.
I
You got
and
an
I
award for that, I think.
right, I
Yeah.
rookie of the year, new advisor of the year, all this stuff. And
Yep.
I hit this, and I had this number on my horizon. Like from the beginning of the year, I was like, I'm going to do that. And I did. But I got there, and I
Mm.
remember me and my fiance took a trip to Italy, like to celebrate. And I'm like, we're in Rome. I remember so vividly. We're sitting there having a dinner, and I'm just like, is this it? Like, is this why I like? Is this why I went so hard? Is this why I worked some weeks 100 hours? Like, I took calls at Saturday at 9 a.m. and Sunday at 10 a.m. Like, is this why I did this? And not to say that it wasn't great. I
Mm.
enjoyed my time, and I'm glad that I did that. And sure, I impacted and helped a lot of people along the way.
Mm.
But I also realized this external recognition was all I was going after. And I burned out, and I had a good 6 month period where I really felt lost after that first year.
Mm.
I have mentors. I've she's an EQ coach is the term that she uses for what she does.
Hmm. Hmm.
She's been instrumental in my growth, and I had to understand like what really makes a good life. And I think happy, healthy, wealthy, wise, you break down those four categories.
Yep.
If any one of those is off, the other categories automatically stoop down to that level no matter what. So you need to have them all on
Oh,
par with each other. And that was the first time that I felt it in my life and really had to search within
yeah, man.
myself.
I felt it early. I felt it really early. So maybe that's why I've been in tune with watching what you're doing online and stuff, because when I picked up what we now call EQ, it was just from reading books, and it was instinctive. So for me, it's funny you brought up the Rome trip. For me, it was a trip to France. I went to France when I was 15 years old to go visit the same exchange student who had stayed with me the previous year. Matter of fact, I don't think you noticed, but everything I do on LinkedIn is because of this trip. So my
Huh.
my pop sends me to France. My buddy's father decides to drive us around the country for 30 days in an old Range Rover, and it just changed me, because at the time I was just an inner city knucklehead. Like, I was a good kid, but I was doing some stupid stuff and everything. And it opened my eyes up that the world was a lot bigger than Boston. I was like, man, wait a minute, what else is out here? So that started this whole, like, I want to see the world. And then the way that I figured out that I could see the world was when I read Personal Finance for Dummies, found the concept of passive income. And I was like, well, if I can get passive income, then I can create time. If I can create time, I can go do the same kind of experience that I had when I was 15 and go see more stuff. That's how it all came out for me. That level of EQ and that level of understanding is just not something that is taught, right? So everyone, I struggle and I scream online, and now when I speak on stages or whatever I'm doing nowadays, because everybody is so used to the normal drum of messaging of get the job, save your money away, you'll be good at age 60. It is a very challenging thing. So everyone who's listening, a lot of the people who are listening are like, okay, cool. I get the EQ part. I get the let me get some cash flow part to live. What do you when you get potential clients, where do you see a majority of the people struggling and how do you help them?
Great question. The biggest struggle that I see is that people typically have leakage
Mm,
with their income that's coming in. And I have a perfect example. Like I have this client who make a $500,000
yeah,
and feels like he has no money,
yeah.
which is
Which is
crazy. I don't care.
crazy. That's
I don't care.
insane.
I don't care where you live.
Yeah.
And with that, there's a saying: what gets tracked gets improved, and what
Yep.
doesn't get tracked doesn't get improved. It's that simple. I think that's a big thing for a lot of people because I've seen this phenomenon where we'll say, okay, Mr. Client, let's open a money market account and
Mm,
let's automatically just deposit the money that should be left over on a monthly basis for you. Let's just do it for a couple months. We'll hook your accounts up, let your spending feed through, and then we're going to go every month. And either one of two things is going to happen.
mm,
You're either going to dip into your savings or you're not going to dip into your savings. And then we're going to have this account that's building up, and we know this cash flow should be getting put to use somewhere because
yeah.
everything is cash flow for our team when we're working with clients. Like where that is and where that goes will ultimately determine your future. So whether it's going to be
Wait, their cash flow, meaning meaning, sorry, I missed something.
yeah,
Everything is cash flow, meaning what?
meaning this, they're while they're working, their active income versus their expenses
Yeah.
immediately,
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah.
their
Yep.
personal cash flow determines everything because whether we're going to plan to buy a rental property or apartment building, or we're going to just be saving into the traditional stock market investments, we need to have your cash flow zeroed out, and zeroed out from a perspective not of spending or not of totally investing it, but
Mm-hmm.
knowing where every dollar is going so that the true excess or the true cash flow, stick to that term,
Mm,
so that we're allocating those dollars and putting them to work. Because think about like if you own a company and you got
mm,
all these employees and you got this group over here that they do a good job and you're happy you pay them every month, but
mm-hmm.
you got this group of employees over here and you kind of didn't even know they existed.
Mm.
Well, when you don't have a grasp on your cash flow, you're paying employees every month that you don't even know are working for you.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Exactly. And in my journey, that was paying myself first. That so I forced myself not to have here. Well, so I forced myself not to have leakage. The way that I forced myself in my 20s and early 30s, maxed out my 401k. I was like, look, if the government, I'm just going to use the government as a vehicle to get money away from me because I'm going to let it go. But I maxed out my 401k. And then the other thing that I did to stop leakage, paid myself first. So money would go from my paycheck to a storage account, which is just a bank account, but somewhere I didn't have ready access to it. And then after storage went, so if I got paid 4 grand, storage would go for like 3,100, and then I would have to deal with life with the other 900. Where it's flip. Kiyosaki talks about this. A lot of people talk about this, paying yourself first, but people don't really think about it. All right, so future Maurice got paid first, then existing Maurice had to just live life on the $900. And that's what I mean when I say in my post sometimes, you stay broke. You don't, not poor, but I was just always broke. And then I would take that money and put it into assets. I couldn't get it out. What kind of assets do you help people with? Is it because people will think about the traditional stuff, stocks, bonds, etc. But I feel like you do more than that.
We're not going to be the ones that are like, oh, buy that property, for example. Like when I work with people, I'll tell them like, look, if you're not seasoned enough to know how to analyze a rental deal and analyze that property and where it's at, you should have a realtor that you're working with. I'm not a realtor, but what I'm going to
Right.
do if it's real estate in this example, I'm going to be able to show you how do we factor that real estate and the numbers it's projecting into your financial situation. How do we prepare your financial situation that you can make that purchase?
Yeah.
Another common area is people that are either business owners, they buy businesses as limited partners, or people that are investing in private equity via funds, or people that are investing in real estate via funds, whether it's syndication and whatnot.
Mm,
And same thing with those. I'm not going to be the subject matter expert, but I'm playing quarterback for our clients. So I know who to throw the ball to. So I mentioned
yeah.
before that
Yeah.
guy that I have, Trev, who's from a company that they do some things with private equity. I'll bring him in sometimes and be like, hey, I got a client who wants to know about alternative investments. They're not just into traditional public markets.
Yeah,
I'll bring him in. Same thing with real estate. I have some connections in the real estate world where, all right, maybe I got to introduce this person to so and so. You know what I mean?
I do.
So that's the way that I'll look at it, because even with public markets in the stock market, I'm not the stock trader. I mean, I'm out generating business for our team, and I'm meeting with clients. So I need to have those people who are the CFAs, which are just the financial analysts and
Yeah,
portfolio managers, that they're going to do that. And I'm making sure that whatever direction my clients are going, I have that resource or resources that help ensure the best outcome there.
I love that. You strike me as a financial mentor of sorts. I can just I've been around the block a long time. I've been around the block a long time. So some of the terminology you're even using, I'm surprised that you're even talking about private equity and syndication, but that's a testament to who you are and what you've self-taught and formally taught, self-taught, been formally taught and taught yourself. I know I'm going to ask you something rhetorically because I think it's going to benefit people who are listening and I want to get this across to them. You charge a flat fee for what you do because you know the value of mentors. Can you I know your story because I've listened to a bunch of interviews that you've been on and how certain mentors have played a role. People see investing as a mentor as some expense when some people see investing as a mentor as a necessity, which is I'm going to raise my hand on that one. Can you speak to the value of your journey with mentors and then the value of you guys being a mentor to people who want to go try life on because money's such a long pole in a tent, right?
So my first year in business, when I started to have some of that success that I talked about earlier, one of the really good things that I did, and I had people in my ear around me talking about investing in yourself, I
Yep.
started to build up some cash. And I was 22 years old at the time. I'm like, all right, I'm a money guy, but I got more cash than I've ever had.
Yep.
What should I really be doing this?
Yep. Yep.
I happen to be pitched by who I would hire as my first coach, Simon Granner, right in the middle of this conundrum after I just landed my biggest client to date in my career at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a couple calls with him. Simon is a business coach specific to financial advisors. So I'm like, all right, man, I guess this is what they talk about investing in yourself. Like, this seems like it's for me. I might as well,
Yep.
hey, if I do it and it doesn't work out, it is what it is, but it seems like it's going to be good. And
Yep.
I hired Simon, and he was a big part in that success my first year. I
Mm-hmm.
actually work with him ongoing now. I pay him
Mm.
monthly, and I had a call with him today, and he's been immensely valuable to me. Immensely
Mm.
valuable to me. I paid him 5 figures to consult and mentor with me. So that was the sort of the first one I've had, and after that, I was hooked because I just saw, oh, I could put dollars into other people who are going to accelerate my learning curve, and
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
will make me like I turned 26 in 2 weeks here.
Right on.
That will make me at soon to be 26 more like 36, more like 46. And I just kept doing this over and over and over. And like this part, I don't say to brag because there's been bad investments with the good ones, but it's over 6 figures I've literally poured into myself my first 4 years in business. And I I sometimes have to check myself of like, I get this mindset that I should have more money invested in traditional investments and more money in savings or whatnot than what I did from what my income is. And then I'm like, no, wait a minute. Like, you made that investment, you made that investment, you made that investment. They might not pay back completely right now, but it's going to come back. It's going to come back. You just got to keep doing what you need to do.
That's it. And it does come back. And I think you had one or two more mentors that I want you to mention, but before you move on to it, just in your acumen alone, just in your acumen alone, there is a level of knowledge and understanding that shines through that would potentially lead you to some deal or some client. Even me sitting across the screen from you, I'm like, no, that's right. That makes me feel comfortable that Mando really knows what he's talking about. I'm not the best real estate investor at all. No, it's just that I've hired mentors along the way who have taught me certain things. And then when I started Quattro Capital, which is a private equity firm, I don't know nothing about private equity, but me and my partners hired a business coach at significant expense. I think we were in the 180s or something like that, 180 grand or something like that. It has so much value, and people don't recognize it. They see it as such an expense. They're like, no, but they don't see the back end value of it. I'm wondering if your peers have that same sense, especially folks who are in their 20s like you. But do they have that same sense of, no, man, let me hire people and push this forward?
I don't think a lot of my peers do.
Yeah.
But what's funny is like the people closest to me, absolutely. And I think part of that is like we sort of think in that same frame of value over cost.
Yeah.
And from a relationship dynamic, you don't really think about these things, but when you're both two people that think that way, you tend to jive better together just on a relationship level. So to answer you directly though, I don't think a lot of people around my age think that way, and they might see, oh, I pay that coach $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever someone's fee is, and well, now I can't, I can't go to the club on the weekends.
Yeah.
I
Right.
can't go to Miami. I can't go to LA. Like that's what I think goes through a lot of young people's mind.
Which is tough. So let me run it down for people. The library was my mentor originally, and then books were my mentors. I hired my first actual mentor in 2016. I think he was 45 grand, and that was to do multifamily real estate off the first deal. I mean, it took me 2 years to do my first multifamily deal. I was nervous, man. I had limiting beliefs. I was nervous and all that type of stuff. This guy gets on a plane from Rhode Island, flies down, white dude, flies down, and I'm saying that for a reason, flies down to DC. He's like, I need to spend 48 hours with you, clear your schedule. I was like, okay. And he comes down to the city and we're just talking. We never once talked about the mechanics of a deal. You know what he told me? He said, why do you think young black dude, you, Maurice, is not as good as old white dude me? Why? Brother. That dude put me in my place because for some reason I was forecasting onto myself. I had done all this single family stuff. That was the only thing I could do. And he knew to articulate it to me that way, to make it clear to me, uh, just because you grew up in inner city Boston or wherever you grew up doesn't mean that I am different from you, or that I am better than you. You can go accomplish it. This is the value of a mentor. So that guy was 45 grand. I love him to this day because he sent me on his journey. And now I've done, I don't know, 220 million in apartment complexes. That was the first guy. The business coach was 180 grand with all these other people. I've had one personal life coach for about 60 grand. Anyway, I'm saying, and you talked about six figures for your coaches. I'm just saying this out loud so when people listen to this, they realize someone like you and someone like me who has such a value system in getting people to accelerate the journey. But if you don't have the money, it's okay. Books, peers, mentors, but look for someone that can accelerate you. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up, and you and I have not worked together, so I can't attest to the value of your work, but I can attest to the value of your character because I've been tracking you for a while. What do people say to you when you suggest, okay, I have a flat fee for X? I'm just curious the reaction of professionals because that's going to be the question that people are going to have on their mind listening to this.
Well, typically the fee is the bookend of two calls
Mm,
that are about a combined 75 minutes. And I need to give context of what's talked about because
yeah.
it'll make the fee make more sense. So the first time I talk to somebody, I don't even ask money questions. It's literally like Maurice, this is exactly what I say. Look, the money stuff's going to take care of its stuff. We got 30 minutes today, 45 minutes today to talk about what you have on your mind. So, what's
Mm,
the number one thing that we could take care of today that's going to make your life a little bit easier before we got on this Zoom call or got on the phone than before we were? What's that one thing? And usually, money stuff is going to come out in that because they're on the call. They know I'm a
of
money guy,
course. Yeah.
but it's usually the life stuff. So then it's, hey, tell me more, tell me more. And 5, 10 minutes later, I know exactly what's keeping these people up at night, what that third thing that they think about right before they go to bed at night is, so we can segue into, okay, now talk to me. What's the challenge? Like, what are we really working towards in terms of desired reality, and what's blocking you? Like, why are we
Mm,
talking today? Why can't you go do this yourself? What is the challenge?
mm,
And once I know that, I'm going to be able to articulate that back to them, make sure
mm,
I'm understanding, because if
mm.
I don't understand, then I cannot help with money. And if I do, and if I see opportunity there, we have that second call. And in the second call, I'll usually get some of the financial information ahead of time so that I could come in and say, all right, here's the intangibles, which the intangibles we typically help people with are accountability and then having someone to bounce things off of. That's like a very common coaching relationship, I think, those
Yep.
two things. And we
Yep.
bring that as well.
Yep.
But the second part is with the financial stuff, it's usually taxes where we're able to show quantifiable value, and
Mm,
taxes in the sense of like, where are you holding your assets? How are you planning to take income from these assets later? So talk about the cash flow on the back end before. How are we taking cash flow? Because it's not just as simple as put money in assets and then take it out. There's got to be
right.
strategic planning there so you're not giving more than you need to Uncle Sam.
Right.
So positioning the fee around those things. And the last piece to close it off, we don't just meet with clients one and done and then leave.
Mm,
It's ongoing with us. We sign a 1 year contract, so we don't lock anybody in. But ideally, we're working together decades, and we'll do quarterly meetings or every 4 month meetings. So we either do quarterly or trimesters. Those are important because with finances, a lot of people make mistakes when they're not proactive. So
yeah.
they just think, oh, money's coming in. It's going where the original plan was. Life's good. We're going on vacation. We're buying stuff for the kids. We're good. But I can't tell you how many times that we sit down for a quarterly meeting and there's a glaring thing that needs to be taken care of that they had no idea about just
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Of
we're
course.
stuck in that proactive cycle. So when it comes to that fee and when it comes to working with us, those are typically the things that people are giving us feedback that they're getting the most value, and also what we see as the most valuable in working with us.
I love it. And my point in bringing that up was all the knowledge. People don't get it, man. All the knowledge that resides in a book, all the knowledge that resides, let's not in a podcast, but all the knowledge that resides in a book or all the knowledge that resides in a mentor is available. You don't have to recreate the wheel. So with you articulating everything you just articulated, I have the average age range for the people who listen to the Try Life On podcast is usually late 20s to about low 50s. And it's a really good mix. But they've already been in the workforce. They're trying to figure some stuff out. They think they're always late, which is not true. There is no late. There's no schedule for any of this stuff. But just as a wrap up question, what would you like? You're working with all these professionals and you're helping them square away their financials so they can live their best life. What would you tell people as a means to try life on relative to, oh, I think I'm too late. I don't know where to start. I'm just going to work. I'm making these paychecks, but I don't know where to put it. What would be the thing that you would tell them if you were on a call with them as to relax, this is what we can do? What's that thing?
There's a great saying, clarity precedes success. And
Mm,
I come back to that constantly. I probably say that every single day that I wake up, because clarity precedes success like this. Well, if I'm late because I make this income and I've sort of done the math on what I could invest and what I could buy, and that's not going to get me out to whatever age. Well, maybe we need clarity on what skills we need to develop or what networks we need to get into. On
yeah.
the same hand, maybe I have the income, but I just don't know what I need to be doing. Well, maybe I need clarity on what I need to be doing. So you talk to somebody like us who could give you the clarity there and quantify, like, oh, you're 50, but you think you can't get out till 70? Well, here's all the numbers. And if we just change this, this, and this, here's how you get out of 57. We can do
Yeah.
that. So there's clarity on that. I think those are the two main areas that we either need clarity on how do we increase the top line, or we need clarity on what do we do with the money that's coming in. There's always decreasing expenses. People talk about that, but that's not going to make you free at a point.
No.
You really need to increase that top line to get to where you want to get to, in my experience.
I have that's thank you for saying that. And I know that'll be super helpful to a lot of people because I talk to a lot of people about finances. I have never found, for those who budget, I got to say this. For those who budget or go the mustache route or the fire route, and I respect all those things, and I think it depends on people's temperament and what they want to get accomplished. But I have never found that going after reduction in my expenses has done anything for me. What has been the saving grace is me always having this abundant mindset, or me not letting myself get money in the first place, and always going after the most abundant way that I can increase the top line. I'm just not a spender. Like I joke online, but I still drive my '05 Infinity. Most of my homes are paid off at this point because I just would always pay into them, what have you. So I like what you're saying, that no, it's the top line stuff. One more question came to mind, because I've asked financial planners this in the past. What are you doing for your, and I actually think it's a way for people to understand that you're an awesome person and human too. You got to think about this stuff for yourself. Like for you and your fiance, how does your financial game plan work? Meaning you're 25 now, almost 26, congrats. Um, you want to be in the space that you were in for X number of years. This is what I'm doing to prepare myself financially. I may or may not want to exit. How do you think about all this stuff just for your own life? Because then that'll show people how to think about it for theirs.
This is my favorite question. So when I started my business, well,
Yeah.
started in business and started my practice, I was living at home for the first 2.5 years probably. And I just told myself, I am going to bite this bullet. I'm going to live with my parents for a little bit, let this get off the ground. I saved some cash from reselling sneakers, and I'm going to position myself that I'm going to house hack when I move
Yeah.
out. I'm not,
Oh,
I'm not, I'm not going to move out to do anything but house hack. So now I got to that point the beginning of last year, about a year and a half ago now. So I was 3 years into my career
mm,
almost. 3 unit property comes up. Also had a garage on the back of the property that wasn't being rented out. We had put an offer in on that,
mm-hmm,
got that. So this was like the first step in my journey from my eyes. Get that property. We lived in the main unit for a year, rented the others out. We're doing some Airbnbs with those because there's hospitals in the area. A lot of travel nurses come in and out. So that's been
mm-hmm,
good for us with the Airbnb.
mm-hmm.
The garage was not being rented. So I said, all right, I could probably rent that out too. Rented the garage out and have that going on a monthly basis. And we lived there for a year and just kept expenses basically the same as they've been when I was living at my parents and she was living at her parents. The next step was, okay, so we were there for a year, still save up some money. Now we have our second property, which is a primary residence. So there's obviously just some sunk costs that come with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But
It's an
with that, it's
asset
like,
nonetheless, right? I know what you're
yeah,
doing with it.
with that, my thinking was, okay, I'm going to put some money into this, take a little bit of a step back because this is more lifestyle than it is building wealth, of course. But the rent on the first property, they averaged out to be where I'm owning both properties, and after all expenses all in, paying anywhere from 600 to 1,000 a month to build equity in both properties at the end of the day. So that's like the real estate side of things. I want to
Mm-hmm.
continue to get more properties in the real estate game and build that out. But obviously, doing the other things like stocks and whatnot and investing in the markets. And I'm about, when you look at my equity versus my stocks, I'm about 50-50 on the properties in terms of
I
equity
love
versus
it.
my stock portfolio. So when I did the math on that, I thought it was just a perfect representation of the way my mind thinks. And, I got to say this for a disclaimer. This is just
Yeah.
what works for me. I'm
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
financial
No doubt.
advisor and not saying this is the way you should go, but it's just what I do with my personal money. I just have to say that out
Yeah, and I'm definitely not a financial advisor, but I'll say it anyway. I love real
loud.
estate for everything it has done for me. Real estate for me, and even dividend stocks to an extent, but you're not going to get any tax benefits from all that, and taxes are our number one bill. Um, Listen, man, okay, just as because you brought that up, and just because I said this thing about taxes, me and my partners, I won't say which partner, so it doesn't, I don't give away what business it is, but we had a sale, and we sold and we profited $1.9 million, okay, across the partnership, and that 1.9 million equated to about a 200 or $300,000 gain per person or something like that. And off that gain, my tax liability for that was 40 grand. That's it. But the 40 grand was wiped out by depreciation. So I effectively paid no tax, or me and my partners paid no tax on a $2 million gain. Now, people will say, oh, you got to pay your fair share. We are, because what we did was facilitate affordable housing for people to live. And that's why the government gives people tax breaks. As you talk about, the tax code is there to help, not to hurt people. So here I am doing affordable housing, but I get the benefit of leveraging the tax code to have no taxes. This is why people need a financial advisor like Mando, I got that right. Need a financial advisor like Mando to kind of direct these things. And that's the other reason why I think it's foolish that people don't pay for support, because you're not going to learn all these things on your own. You get a professional like yourself, or you go to, and if you don't want to hire a professional, then you go to someone like, let's say Maurice, who you trust, who has been doing this for 30 years. So I've had so many mistakes that I don't make as many as I used to anymore, so I can help people. But finances is such a long pole in the tent, my man. And that's why I wanted to bring you on, because the way you are attacking it, the way you are talking about it, I think is so relatable. I want people to come find you on LinkedIn, to read your posts. They are consumable, they're actionable. And even one more thing, I love the fact that you're in your 20s, because I see myself in you, or I see you and me from where I was 20 years ago, the way you're thinking about this stuff. And you don't have to go to the typical guy or gal who's in some business suit who wants to sell you some stock future that you don't understand. There are very relatable people out there like yourself that folks can take a moment to find. And that's why I wanted to bring you on the podcast. So I appreciate you doing that for sure.
Look, man, I appreciate you having me on. And like I said earlier, like I absolutely look up to you since I've been consuming your stuff. And I just think we're very aligned with the way that we think. And I love it, man. So I appreciate you having me on.
It's my pleasure. How do folks find you? Beyond your LinkedIn profile will obviously be featured in the show notes, but where else can people find you?
LinkedIn's definitely the best place. I have some compliance limitations, long story short. So LinkedIn's probably the
Okay.
best place to find me. And if you want to chat, can obviously message me there or book a call on my profile if you're looking for help with your finances. But by all means, at the very minimum, just check me out there, follow me, connect with me.
Yep, if you're looking for help with your finances, for sure. But I even want people to understand that the way you are thinking about life, the way you are thinking about leveraging your career, and the way you're using your knowledge to impart and to impact other people is awesome. There's so many people like you and I who want, yes, we're going to make money. I get that. Like, but you're doing it as a byproduct of trying to help people. And I think that's the best way to live. And you are a great example of someone who's not only helping people try life on, but trying life on yourself. So my man, Mando, I appreciate it. And thank you for visiting the show.
Thank you, man.
All right, brother. Hey guys, this is Maurice, host of the Try Life On podcast. And thank you for listening to another episode. I hope you are finding it useful and helping you design your own lifestyle that you don't need a vacation from. If that's the case, please consider dropping a review for me, whether in Apple, iTunes, or in Spotify. Drop a review, put some stars on it, give me some feedback on how I can make the podcast better, what information you are looking for. I am doing my best to get information to you on the Try Life On principles, the 5 freedoms, how to build lifestyle, travel hacking, all of it. And I want to do it for you. So please do a review for me. And until next time, my name is Maurice Philogene, and this is the Try Life On podcast. Peace.